prime, and he was recognized as one of the greatest boxers that ever lived. He got on an airplane one time and just absolutely refused to do anything that the stewardesses said. He resisted the instructions of the stewardesses, they were called that at that time, to buckle up. To which Ollie replied, "Superman don't need no seatbelt." To which the stewardess, without even skipping a beat, says, "Superman don't need no airplane either. Buckle up." Ollie swallowed his pride, fastened his seatbelt. You know, Jesus makes a prediction that should be heeded by stars of reality television and maybe even ourselves. He says, "All that exalt themselves will be made low, and all those that humble themselves will be made high." In other words, God recognizes what's on the inside of us. God recognizes the intent of whatever we are doing and looks inside of us and recognizes that there is something more than just the flashy that there is. I mean, that humility that we have needs to be ingrained into us so much that we don't even think about what else needs to be done. There's another story about a speaker that was getting introduced, and when I read this, I thought, this could happen to Carolyn and I. I mean, it really could easily. I mean, he's being recognized, and this glowing and lengthy recitation of all of his accomplishments was being read. To which he turned to his wife and he said, "I wonder how many truly great men there are in the world today." To which she replied, "One less than you think." In honor, prefer one another. It remains inside of us to be that kind of person that says we want those that really do deserve the recognition to be recognized, and we want to do our job and do it well, but we don't need all the flashy recognition. We don't need to do the end zones dance whenever we do something, whenever something is accomplished. What we need is just to know that we've done our best and we get recognized for that. And I know that we've got kind of a split age-wise congregation. How many of you know who George McGovern is? Okay. See, those under 40 probably don't know who he is, but those over, they will. George McGovern had the distinction of being the Democrat who lost to Republican Richard Nixon by the most lopsided election that there ever was. And that's his distinction, is that he's written in the record books as doing that. But George McGovern did so much more, especially after that particular run for the presidency. He was no coward, and that was part of what happened to him in the election, that he was portrayed as a coward because he was against the Vietnam War. But he was no coward. He was a decorated bomber pilot in World War II, a man who served his country bravely and well. His staff kept telling him he needed to talk more about his World War accomplishments, and he refused to do it because that wasn't the kind of person he was. He was reluctant to do so. He just described himself as the son of a Methodist minister, a good old South Dakota boy who went off to war, a man who had been married to the same woman forever. In short, he was humble. But yet, he was able to take his talent, he was able to even get together with one of his rivals, a Republican Bob Dole, and they were able to make a difference in the world by making sure that no child went hungry. They started programs on Capitol Hill that tried to eliminate hunger in this country and around the world. In the 1970s, he was on the Senate Hunger and Human Needs Committee, and they worked together. He and Bob Dole worked together to reform the food stamp program, to expand the domestic school lunch program, and establish the special supplement program for women, infants, and children, which are still active today. Later, they worked on creating a global school feeding, nutrition, and education program that made a difference in every school in the United States, even today. He was supported by both Presidents Clinton and Bush, and the program was able to feed 22 million children around the world. Did you know that? No, because it isn't flashed across the newspapers. It isn't flashed. He didn't want it to be. He didn't want to be recognized as the one that did that, but he wanted to make sure that the job got done. George McGovern, Bob Dole, Democrat and Republican, both fought in World War II, both ran for president and lost, but they are not in any sense losers because of what they were able to accomplish in their lifetime. Jesus certainly has concern for the hungry. As he told his guests, don't invite those to your banquet. Don't invite those to your table who can repay you, that will give you a meal or will invite you over to their house. Go out into the alleys and the backyards, into the back places of your community, and invite those that don't normally get involved. Don't get invited, Those that truly do need a meal, that will recognize, and your reward will not be in being invited to another banquet. It will be invited to the kingdom that God has created. Feed those that cannot repay you, commands Jesus. The poor who live in cheap motels and don't have enough food to feed their children. Those that are scourging around in the garbage cans looking for a little bit of food. Now, we may not find that in our community, but we do find it around in the world. And there is ways in which we can serve to make sure that doesn't happen. You don't want to make the banquet for those. As being a follower of Jesus Christ, we need to go against the culture, and we need to offer to all those a simple meal. A thought came to me this morning as I was going over this message that I wanted to give to you this morning. And a thought came to me of something that maybe we could do as a church. What if we would think about offering a meal once a month for anybody in the community that wanted to come in and have a meal, and it didn't cost them anything? If we would just open our doors one day a month and say, everybody, anybody who wants to come and share a meal with us, you are invited. And you don't have to pay. What would that be like? I mean, we do go to the Salvation Army in North Platte once every 3 months to be able to serve them that are hungry. And I'm not saying that we need to stop that program. But what if we would turn to our own community and do the same thing? If we would turn to our own community and say, just like they do, I believe there's a group here in town that does it on Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving, that says, come and have a meal on us. What if we did the same? What if we opened our doors and said, come on in and have a meal with us? Wouldn't that look like the same kind of thing that Jesus was trying to impress upon the Pharisees? To say, go out into the neighborhoods and find those that are hungry and offer them the thing that we can do. We certainly don't have to do a victory dance, and we certainly don't have to spike the ball, and we certainly don't have to puff our chests out at all. But we could offer something that is needed. Anything we do to serve others without expectation of a payback is to be seen as success in Jesus' eyes, and it should be done, because the only recognition we need is to be closer to the resurrection of the righteous. We don't have to spike the ball or do the worm crawl or whatever else there might be in a celebration. All we need to do is serve. And if we did that, and we felt the presence of Christ in our lives, and we felt God standing next to us, and He said, well done, good and faithful servant, our only response needs to be, thanks, King. Gracious God, we thank You for setting the table for us, calling us in, and offering to us the greatest meal that there ever was. Help us, dear Lord, to be humble in all that we do, but also find ways in which we can serve You, to feed the hungry, house the homeless, and care for those